Shall we do a radio check? Can anybody hear me?
Okay. Oh. Turn your volume off on your computer. Hold on, time out.
We good? We good? Oh, all right, so success. First day of class jitters kind of stuff. Well, it's always good to go well in advance of first day of class, make sure your technology works. Lesson for all. Okay, so just to bring the folks that are joining us through Zoom back up, there are two pieces to program coordination. I mentioned earlier that there's, of course, the SAC-COC expectations, which I'm going to focus on, and there may be additional expectations that your director may have, and that's perfectly fine, and those I can't address. But we will talk about the SAC-COC pieces this morning. And so what I want to start with is the why. Why do we have to worry about program coordination? And again, there's the SAC-COC piece, but even if we didn't have SAC-COC telling us that we had to do this, ultimately we would have to do this, right? I mean, because we have a lot of programs and somebody has to make sure that everything is up and running as it should. And if you look at our mission, right, what I've highlighted there in the box, we provide distinctive and competitive educational programs embedded in a welcoming environment, preparing a diverse student population to embark on meaningful life endeavors. Who's responsible for that, right? We could say the faculty, but who's responsible for making sure that the faculty make sure that this happens? It's program coordinator. Somebody has to take the lead, right? And so even if we didn't have SAC-COC telling us that we had to do this, somebody would have to be, you know, Doug, you're going to have to be the program coordinator for the chemistry program. Somebody's got to take the charge. Also, in our values, if you go and look at our values, there's a couple of places where this is also true, right? Value number 7, an evolving curriculum that fosters lifelong curiosity and critical thinking. Who's responsible for that, right? Who's responsible for making sure that we're achieving that value? And also, the reason that we assign this to faculty, right? We also have the value of institutional governance that respects the academic freedom and inclusion of faculty. Faculty are in charge of the curriculum, right? So we need to have somebody that kind of takes the lead with that. So that's the why of program coordination, whether or not we have SACs telling us we have to do it or not. This exists at just about every institution. They may not call it program coordinators or program coordination, but you got to have somebody that's in charge that can lead the way on these types of things. But we do have SAC-COC, and SAC-COC has 6.2.c, which tells us that we have to do this. And so I'm just going to point this out to you. And it says one little sentence here. For each of its educational programs, the institution assigns appropriate responsibility for program coordination. And there's a couple of words in here that's very, very important. The word each and institution assigns. Okay, so each and institution assigns are very, very important here. We'll talk a little bit about that. And if you go through and you look at the rationale in the SAC-COC resource manual, you can get some more information there. And the whole reason being because student learning is central to the institution's mission and educational degrees. The faculty has the responsibility for directing the learning enterprise. Again, program coordinators are the ones that take charge of this. So again, it's SAC-COC making sure that faculty control the learning and education enterprise at the institution. So I highlighted a couple of words. What is meant by each? Right? We've had this debate at the institution for a while, but SAC-COC is actually very clear on this. For the purpose of this standard, an academic program is a credential as defined by the institution. A degree with a defined major is clearly a program. So if a student can apply to it, if it's got a page in the bulletin and it appears on the transcript, it's a program. No matter how we define it otherwise, that is a program. That's why you might actually be a program coordinator for some related programs, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can be a program coordinator for a couple of things. Okay, so for example, in my discipline, we have chemistry and we have chemistry parentheses biochemistry. It could be the same program coordinator because there's related course material there. Okay, so that's what is meant by each. And also, we have defined this for quite some time at the institution. Going back as far as I can in the bulletin, we've always had this major field requirement statement that talks about the major. And so clearly each major that we have is a program that has to have some type of program coordination going on. Okay. What is meant by the institution assigns? Does it mean that Doug, just come out and say you're going to be a program coordinator? No. But the institution has to do that. Okay. So there is an expectation that when your director talks with you about you being the next program coordinator or whatever the case may be, that you're qualified to be the program coordinator. Okay. And so that's what SACS is looking for. Do you actually have the qualifications to be the program coordinator? Can you teach in the discipline? Do you have the credentials and background experience to do that? So we look at all those things, you know. So for example, I have a degree in chemistry, it's a PhD. I could be a program coordinator in the chemistry program. Could I be a program coordinator in math? No, I don't have, I've taken math classes, but I don't have the background sufficient to coordinate an entire program in mathematics. So we want to make sure that we have people who have the proper background and credentials to oversee the program coordination. Okay. So in SAC Standard 6.2C, there are, at the end of the resource manual where it talks about all these different standards, there's always questions to consider, and they make that sound nice. Really, those are questions that you have to address during your reaffirmation for the most part. So in my office, when we are getting ready to write those reports for SAC-COC, we go through each one of these questions to consider as we put together our reports for compliance. And so you can see the whole list of questions that they ask you to consider for this. So how does the organizational structure and academic units affect the assignment of appropriate responsibility for program coordination? So we have to go through our org chart, we have to go through how our schools are constructed, talk about how all that, where faculty belong, etc. So there's a variety of questions, but one here, of course, is do coordinators have qualifications appropriate for the degree level of the program? So it's very similar to your faculty qualification form, right? So if you have a PhD or an EDD in the field, a terminal degree, you could be a program coordinator for an undergraduate program, a master's program, or a doctoral level program. If you had a master's degree, you could be a program coordinator for a master's program or an undergraduate program, but you couldn't be the program coordinator for the PhD program because you don't have the credential to oversee that. And then it asks, you know, in what sense are these responsibilities assigned? And I'll show you how we deal with that in just a moment. And then, of course, there's sample documentation that they want to see. So it's not enough that we just write the report and make it sound good and posted, they want to see supporting evidence for that. So we have to include a roster of program coordinators. That's why I send out to the directors every September. It's time to update program coordinators because I need an active roster to provide SAC-COC each time they come around asking for it. So we want to make sure we have that in place. They want a description of the coordinator responsibilities. They want to make sure that everything that they're asking for is covered. They want to look for wording in contracts or faculty handbooks, anything like that that might suggest who's responsible for program coordination. So all of this type of information is stuff that we have to go through as we're composing these accreditation reports. So we do have an academic program coordinator policy at the institution. If you've not seen it, you can find it on Policy Stat. And I can send this out later, but we do have a full academic program coordinator policy. I would encourage you all to go and look at it, but I'll just cover kind of some of the highlights here. The term program coordinator may include several different titles at the institution. Okay, you may not call yourself a program coordinator in your area, and that's fine. But what we're not talking about is we're not talking about non-academic programming. So if you're if you're in student affairs and you're a first year experience program coordinator, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about things that have a degree plan in our bulletin. So, we've got how many plans we have in the bulletin? 160 or something like that. So, 160 degree plans in the bulletin. I think you got to have a coordinator assigned, at least one coordinator assigned to each one of those, and a coordinator can be assigned to multiple ones, as I mentioned earlier. So we have to have a program coordinator identified for everything that I mentioned before. So all academic programs, that includes what some people think of as emphasis areas, our certificates, our badges, and our standalone minors. We have to have somebody associated with that. We do not need a program coordinator for a minor that has a parent program. So for example, the program coordinator in chemistry takes care of the chemistry minor by definition, because the minor is a subset of the chemistry program. Okay. But if we had a standalone minor in, I don't know, chemical technology that didn't really belong to any other major, we would need somebody that was assigned to do that. So we have several standalone minors at the institution: nonprofit studies, there's the health humanities minor, white studies minor, that don't have parent programs that they belong to. So but somebody still has to oversee those minors and make sure that they're doing what they intend to do there. Program coordinators have to be qualified to teach at each level in the program that they're assigned coordination. So if you're doing an undergraduate program, you need to be able to teach courses at all 4 levels of an undergraduate program to be the program coordinator. That does not mean that you have to be qualified to teach each and every course in the program. I'm not suggesting that. But you couldn't just be somebody who was only qualified to teach the freshman level courses, and then you'd be the program coordinator for everything from freshman to senior. So it's very important that you have the credentials to do that. And then the rest of the stuff you all can look at on your own later. It's just more procedure. But those are the key points. Every program, and you have to be qualified. Okay. We have some program coordinator responsibilities that each and every program coordinator on campus has to, at a minimum, have in terms of the responsibilities. So for undergraduate programs, it's these 3. Program coordinators are responsible for monitoring the academic quality of the programs. They are responsible for coordinating the assessment of the programs within their purview, and they are responsible for working with stakeholders to maintain curricular relevance. This is language that comes straight out of the SAC-COC resource manual. We've got to make sure that all program coordinators at least meet those responsibilities. And again, like I said, your director may put 3 or 4 other responsibilities on you, and that's perfectly fine, but that has nothing to do with the SAC-COC side of it. Okay. What I'll say is coordinating assessment does not mean that you have to do all of the assessment, but you're the one that's coordinating it, gathering it, putting it into the week reports, those types of things. But nobody expects you to go out and assess everything that needs to be assessed. And Catherine, do you have anything that you want to add on the assessment side, or Claire? Okay. So those are the three things that all program coordinators have to have. Now, if you're in a graduate program, working with the graduate school, they said, well, there's some other things that we want program coordinators to do to help us out here in the graduate school. And so this is the paragraph that you see down here in our policy. Additional program coordinator, graduate programs, graduate certificates, graduate minors, and graduate badges have additional responsibilities outlined by the graduate school. Graduate coordinator responsibilities include chairing the graduate admissions committee, serving as the faculty liaison between the graduate faculty and the graduate school, and understanding and reporting program milestones. So that, if you're a graduate program coordinator, really you're not going to have three. You're going to have those first three, but then you're going to have those other three, and that's going to get you to 6 minimum responsibilities that you're responsible for as a program coordinator. So how do we keep track of all this? As best we can. These change all the time. We try to capture this information in September of each year, but you know, somebody's in September identified as the program coordinator. Christmas rolls around, they find out that they're going to go on sabbatical to some prestigious thing, you know, in Europe for the spring, and that's great. They can't be the program coordinator, so all of a sudden it has to change midstream. And so we try to keep track of all this as best we can through the use of these program coordinator forms. This is where we're going to capture all of that information. So I'm just showing you the example of the program coordinator approval form. This is prepared by your director, is then sent on in the workflow, quote unquote workflow, which is email for us in this particular thing. And so it asks if you've been promoted in rank at USM, and that's either a yes or no. Part of our policy stipulates that you need to have been promoted in rank at USM to be a program coordinator, but there are exceptions. And so we do allow for exceptions in that, and that's really there to protect the faculty, so that a newly hired faculty member isn't just given a, hey, you're going to be program coordinator now for these 3 programs. You got to have time to get your teaching ready, your research ready, and service ready, all that kind of stuff. But it could very well be that you've been hired specifically to come in and run a program. And so it would make sense for you to be the program coordinator. The only thing that we ask is that the dean actually provide a memo stating that they understand you haven't been promoted in rank, and that basically that you're going to be kind of held harmless with this, right? Because program coordination is going to take time. And so we want the dean to know and to acknowledge that this is some extra work for somebody that hasn't been promoted yet. So something that keep.
Dumb question, typically from a mathematician, of course. If you've been hired at the rank of full professor, do you check yes or no?
Check no.
Okay, then he has to write a memo for me. Can do.
So we've had that happen maybe once. But nonetheless, again, even if you're hired at the rank of professor, you're not given tenure your first year, right? So you still want to make sure that it's understood that you know, you're kind of being protected in terms of your time as you do this type of work. So this will go through a whole series of approvals up through me. I do the final approval. My approval really is just, was the policy adhered to? I don't really look to make sure that you're the best person to be the program coordinator or whatever the case may be. That is a decision certainly for the schools to make. I just make sure that the policy was followed and you have the right credentials to be the program coordinator. And so you'll put in your information here, will be here. You'll sign it so you understand all of your responsibilities. Your responsibilities will be over here, and the programs that you're coordinating will be there, and then those will come to me, and we will get you in the system. So where do we keep all this information? Of course, we keep it in faculty success. So this is where you can go and get that type of information about any of the things that you're responsible for coordinating. And so we put that information under the appointments panel. So if you're a program coordinator, you should be able to go in right now and look under appointments and see your appointment for that. Now, if you've just been appointed in the last few weeks, we don't know that. I won't know that until September, right? So you may be acting as a coordinator right now, but not in the system yet. So that we usually take care of that, like I said, in September. And so what you'll see in faculty success is you'll see the title of SAC COC Program Coordinator. That's a privileged type of appointment. We ask that you not use it for anything else. It is just for this program coordination stuff that we're talking about today. And so again, it shows the programs that you're there, the level, and your start date, your end dates for your service in that. So if you started in 2020 and let's say you're rolling off that responsibility this fall, I will get that information from your director and I'll go in and put your end date. So that'll all be in your faculty success account. Hopefully all completely updated by the time October rolls around. Okay. So again, I just put all that information. I use one of our student workers to put all this information in on your behalf, so you don't have to do it. So that's a good thing, and you can then use it however you need to on your CVs as you generate those out of faculty success. And you can go in and get the file. We've saved these as PDFs. You can download the approval document if you need it straight out of faculty success. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about monitoring of academic quality and your program assessments, as we all around here call those WEAVE assessments. You all know WEAVE is just a program, right? We don't really have WEAVE assessments. It's just our SAC COC assessments that we have to do for all of our programming. We like to call them WEAVE. I was program coordinator for chemistry many years ago. We didn't call it program coordinator at the time. I was chair of the undergraduate committee, but I did all the WEAVE assessments. Finding data was like pulling teeth. But today, with the help of things going on in IR and the provost office to build out data systems that actually are much more helpful than in the past, we have a lot of information at our fingertips. And so all directors have access to HelioCampus. Not all program coordinators, however, have access to HelioCampus. And it's not that we're trying to hide information from you. In fact, we want to get as much of it out in front of you as we can. The issue is the number of site licenses that we have. We can't give one to every faculty member. So what we've done is we've built out some, and I say by we, IR has built out some processes that will automatically email program coordinators their program review information that they're going to need to fill out their WEAVE assessments when do we send that out? In January, I believe. Is that right? That goes out in January. And so that comes from the program review tab. So you can see in HelioCampus, we do have a program review tab. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Directors can go in and take a look at that, or their designees can go in and take a look at that. Program coordinators will get a snapshot of that email to you at some point in January. I don't know the exact date. And then you'll have that information right in front of you to help you fill out anything that you need for your WEAVE reports. So what kind of information are you going to be getting? Again, each program coordinator in the system is going to get one of these for every program that they coordinate. You're going to see your second year retention rates and how that changes over time. You're going to see your junior 4-year graduation rate. You're going to see your enrollment trends over a 10-year period. You're going to see your degree production, how many degrees you're producing annually over the course of an academic year. And you're going to see program costing metrics. If that's important for you in that particular report. And then you're going to see a list of courses and the success rates of those courses. So that'll help you identify any areas within your program where you might have bottlenecks that are for students. So you might have a particular course that is a prerequisite to other courses, but also has a high DFW rate, right? And so that's something that as a program coordinator, you might want to sit back and look at and say, why is it that students aren't progressing past that course very well? So we wanted to make sure that all of this information was before you, as you sat down to think about your program or your WEAVE reports, excuse me. So this will come to each program coordinator that is in our faculty success system sometime in January this year. You'll get it for the previous academic year. There's also some institutional data that all faculty and staff have access to. So I'm going to show you how to access this now. This is on the institutional research webpage. So if you just go to usm.edu/institutional-research, You can get to it very, very easily, and you'll see the red circled tab or tile, whatever they call it, and it says faculty and staff data access. That is information that you can go in right now. You don't have to have access to Helio Campus to see it. A lot of it, I think, Amanda, is a mirror of what's in Helio Campus, or very similar. Live data, yeah. So this is official frozen data, whereas Helio Campus could change from day to day based on people's changes in the system. You know, major changes here or major changes there, whatever the case may be. So that would be all census date type data. So when you log into that, you're going to see a panel, and there's some areas that I think are going to be very important for you to take a look at. At the very top, they have this tab called Data Dictionary. I would start there. Excuse me. Data, knowing what the data mean, what the lexicon of what we're talking about is always very, very important. So I would start there. If you click on that, you'll get a bunch of definitions. But you'll also see a tile called Degrees Awarded. You'll see a tile called Program Review. That's going to be very important for you as a program coordinator. And then you'll have a tile called Exit Survey. So many of you may not know, but each semester the folks in IR run a exit survey for all of your majors. And so those that are graduating and heading out, they complete this exit survey. Most people complete this exit survey. And so you can get a lot of information about how your majors felt about the experience they had at USM. So there's a lot of information there that you can glean from those exit surveys. And I encourage you all to take a look at those. So there's other tiles up there that you can look at, but I think those are the four main ones that'll get you through the tasks that you have to complete. So if you go to the Program Review tab, there's actually a couple of things within that I think are very important. The first being that 3-year program trends. So again, because you don't really have access to the live Helio data, we pull this information in for you. And again, it's not live, it's official census date kind of stuff. But you're going to see your enrollment trends and the degrees produced on a 3-year rolling average within that tab. And it looks something like this. I know y'all can't make, I think it's all very, very small. You have a bunch of filters here. You can filter to the programs that you're interested in. You can see on the side if the program is active or inactive. So as you know, we have programs that change names, so that would make a program, an old program, inactive. We have programs that, for whatever reason, people just decide it's no longer needed at the institution. We're going to teach it out. So that's what inactive programs are. But you still have students in them, right? And so they're still trying to complete their degrees. And so they will still appear on this panel. So you can go through and look at every program. And over here at the end, you can see your graduated 3 years, how many graduates you had over a 3-year period. That's not per year, that's over a 3-year period. You can see how many you had the year before, so on and so forth. So along with enrollment, so you can get a lot of that information pretty easily. And you can, again, instead of looking at the whole list, you can filter out whatever you want to using these Tableau filters on the left-hand side. Very useful piece of data for you. I encourage all program coordinators to go in and look at your graduation trends. I think that's very, very useful over a 3-year period. And why do we go on a 3-year period? Because that's what IHL holds us responsible to. That's why we do that. There's a new piece that IR built out for us. It's called the IHL Degree Productivity tab. This is under the USM Degrees Awarded tile. I think it's a very useful piece of information. It puts what we do in context with our sister state institutions. So you can go in and look by zip code. This is why zip codes are so important. You can enter the zip code in for your program, and you'll be able then to see what graduates are produced at each and every IHL institution. So I'm picking on nursing here. but just as an example, I did that because the nursing program is just about every IHL institution, right? So you can see that Alcorn has both a bachelor's program and an associate's program, and they graduate over a 3-year average for they graduate. You can see how Delta State, the W, UMMC, USM, you can see how all of that plays out for us. The number of graduates that we have over a 3-year kind of rolling average. You can also put that zip code in down here and you can see the degree production. So what is the percentage of graduates that we do relative to the entire state system? So this does not include private institutions. This is IR every December, I think, can get this information from IHL. So it'll be updated again in December. But this is a new addition. And I think it's helpful to know how are we performing relative to our counterparts in the state. So it's something that I think a program should be taking a look at as you think about. Yes.
So what if you have different degree programs, if they're still nursing and they still get the, like we have the accelerated program on the coast, and then we have the RN BSN program that's online, and then we have the BSN program in Hattiesburg. How do we differentiate the zip codes and then how do you?
Well, zip codes, when your examples don't necessarily differ.
Okay.
So the accelerated program is really a pathway. It's the same BSN degree that a person starting here would do, right? So those are all run together. If you want to get more granular and see that, you would have to get into the campus to see how things are going by campus, because the accelerated is only offered on the Park campus versus whatever the case may be. You can break that out by the different degree plans. But this rolls up to just one zip code. So if all of those programs have one zip code, that's what's going to appear there. Now, what you'll notice is it says USM only has a bachelor's degree, and we know we offer PhD programs in nursing, but they have a different zip code, so you have to know what that zip is. So for nurse and anesthesia, you have a different zip. You have to enter that zip code, and you'd be able to see how your graduates are doing from there. Does that answer your question? So you can also find what our minimum expectations are on those tiles as well, and I'll just share those with you here. This comes from our academic master plan. You'll notice I left a few things out. We no longer really think about things in terms of emphasis anymore. We think of things as being programs. So for a baccalaureate program, we have kind of a minimum expectation that our programs are generating at least 36 graduates over a 3-year period. Our master's programs are doing 30, and our doctoral programs are doing 10 over a 3-year period. Okay. So as you look at that information, keep this in mind. We have many programs that do a lot more than 36 over a 3-year period. We have some that do fewer. And when you look at it on average, at least when I ran this data a year or so ago, on average, USM's programs generate about 42 graduates per program over a 3-year period. So above that, what we expect, minimum expectation of 36. Just talk a little bit about Curriculog, everybody's favorite subject. So you can get to Curriculog through our institutional effectiveness website. So you go to institutional effectiveness, you see the Curriculog tab down at the bottom. So that's how you will log into Curriculog as you all are making changes to your programs. And as coordinators, you're inputting that information into Curriculog to move it forward. This is where you will start. Curriculog's look and feel from last year have changed. The information that is requested is essentially the same, but they've just changed the layout and the format a little bit. And I think it's a little crisper look. I think it's a little cleaner look than what it was before. But when you log in for the first time this year, if you did something last year, don't be freaked out about the fact that it looks a little different. Okay. So when you log in now, it kind of looks like this, you know, where you can start and start all your proposals. You've got the new proposal button up here. So you can create any proposal, and all know we have a vast number of forms and a vast number of different types of proposals that you all can submit. I do want to focus on just a couple of things that we changed over the summer. So last year, we noticed that when people were modifying courses or creating new courses, sometimes they were missing a key piece on credit hours and course level. And so what we did was we just broke it out into 3 pieces so that the prompts are a little cleaner. So for any course modification that you have coming forward, or for any new course, you have to justify your credit hours and you have to justify the course level. That's a SACS requirement. Actually, it's a Department of Ed requirement that SACS just tells us we have to do. But, you know, you can't just say, oh, I think this class is a 400 level class. Why do you think it's a 400 level class? We have a policy on USM credit hours and USM credit level. And you can click on that. You can see those policies. You have to justify your level. You have to justify the credit hours. And we justify our credit hours based on 2 pieces, in-class expectations and out-of-class expectations. And so that was the piece that I think people were missing. They would tell me, you know, they're going to meet 3 times a week for 15 weeks. Okay, well, that's in class. What's happening out of class? Is there any homework? You know, are they expected to spend about 2 hours a week for every hour of class time? That's our definition of a credit hour, right? So for each credit hour, a student should be in class for 1 hour a week. 50 minutes to 60 minutes is what we call an hour. And they should be spending about 2 hours outside reading, preparing for class, et cetera, doing homework, all that kind of stuff. And so we've broken that out into the in-class expectations and the out-of-class expectations, so you know that you have to address both of those. And I think these are required fields that won't allow it to advance. So we're doing that. And we do get questions. People say, well, we're just modifying the class. We haven't changed our expectations. You still have to do it because you could theoretically modify your course such that when you look at it, you're like, why is that still a 3-hour course? Why isn't it a 2-hour course? Or why isn't it a 4-hour course? So you need to adequately justify the credit hours and course level. And we use that as evidence for SACS COC purposes. Yeah.
I'm in there right now, but I don't see like the historical stuff of it.
It's there, it's hidden behind advanced filter. Have to go find advanced filter and then, you'll have to check completed proposal.
So a few takeaways. Program coordinators serve a very vital role. Not only, you know, we certainly, present this to SAC COC as evidence that we're doing this. So that's a vital role, right? Without SAC COC accreditation, we can't get federal funding. So that's very vital. But also just to make sure that our programs are up to date, relevant. We need somebody that kind of takes charge of that. So this is one of the most important roles, in my opinion, on campus is this program coordination. It helps us ensure the value of our programs. If nobody's coordinating, things will get stale very quickly. Things change in our fields, right? And so it is the responsibility of the program coordinator to work with the faculty and other stakeholders to make sure that what we're delivering our students today is relevant to today's needs. And so also making sure that our programs align with our mission, which is a pretty easy one to do. Make sure that student success efforts, of course, because you're going to see a lot of information in some of those tables that I showed you. So you'll know where your students are not progressing like they should and where they are. And we hope that program coordinators are taking that information back to the faculty and having conversations about how could we get students to walk across the stage a little more straightforwardly than maybe they are now. And of course, SAC COC compliance is very, very important. Without that, I guess I mentioned, we'd be in big trouble. And I also think that this is about being proactive as opposed to reactive. You know, in the past, when we didn't pay as much attention to this, I think programming did get stale. In my discipline as well, but I think now that you have active program coordination, I think we're able to stay ahead of the curve a little better and kind of cut things off at the pass before they get bad, which helps us protect our reputation. Our reputation is dependent on the quality of the programming that we deliver our students. Mandy, did you get a question in the text?
Yes, it says, is Curriculum where we can update the expected course rotation?
No. If they are proposing a new course or a modification to the course, they can put in they could change those rotations. But we will do an expected course rotation update later in the fall semester at some point. We have to give those a little bit of time to soak before we change them. All right, so just to finish up, my contact information, I think everybody knows how they can contact me, just my first name, last name at usm.edu. The easiest way, don't be afraid to pick up the phone, 64714. I usually answer it. I'm actually pretty accessible by phone. I'm just joking with you all. And then if you have any questions about curriculum or anything along those lines, I would encourage you to contact Catherine directly at her email address as well. And so with that, thank you all for attending. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Any concerns? Where are we at on time? Oh, is that Mac? Hey, Mac.
Do you know the exit survey is we get new contact information? Because I know we've had an issue with, like, how many of our students actually matriculate to that school?
No, we don't.
How do you, is there a way to gather information where we can contact students?
We don't collect their demographic information or their contact information on the exit survey, but we could merge it with their source data to provide that to you. That's something that you're needing.
Second.
You can also request to the alumni association to they update records.
For the pathway, yeah, for students to get like, if they did an internship or something, I think that they collect, like a non-US. They're collecting their overall satisfaction experience.
That's something we can look at.
From higher data that's not.
What you would be able to get from IR, which is what's in SOAR now, so you'd be able to access that as a faculty member anyway.
But that's the state I need, but contact the last 5 years. That's something I can be requested through IR. If they've already graduated, it's gonna be what their contact information was when they left. Yeah, you would probably need to contact alumni. If they
Did they do that? What's the response rate like?
Is it, I mean, is it,
Okay.
It also depends upon the school, like, we would do it by the college and by the school, but it's at least 60, 70%.
it's pretty high.
Anything else?
That the policy for us is policy staff or something, I heard.
Policy staff. Yeah, all university policies are stored within policy staff.
We get to there through the program.
I'll be honest with you, the easiest way to find it is just to Google USM policy staff. That's the easiest way to find it. But it's on the general council website, so it's all maintained through the White House.
George had a question online.
Joris, you got a question?
Yeah, hi, good morning. This is Joris van der Haan, School
Hey,
for
Joris.
Science and Engineering. You mentioned that the forms and curricula to update the expected course rotations are not available yet, but where can we find the expected course rotations?
No. Expected course rotation changes are not going to be done through Curriculog unless you're proposing a change to an existing course other than the rotation. We don't have a form just for rotation changes. We'll do a rotation change update towards the end of the semester. Because we just got those put in SOAR, so,
Yeah, that was his question, where can he find the road?
oh, you can find the rotation in SOAR, so you can look up any course in SOAR and you can find what your expected rotation is.
Okay, maybe we're not talking about the same thing because as far as I'm familiar with SOAR, you can see what the offering has been in the past. But
No, down at the, let me, this will be easier for me to show you. Let me,
okay,
I'll cut and paste out of SOAR when I get back to the office and send you a few things.
sounds good. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you all.